I'm going to talk about this method for training dogs, which was developed by a woman called Jan Fennell, who's from a British woman, but she travels all around the world, and she's become a bit of a celebrity, really, because of this dog training method which she developed. And she claims that with one method, this method that she's developed, she can solve all behavioral problems that dogs have. Now, she can't deal with medical problems because it's important to stress that behaviorists, dog behaviorists, are not vets. So if your dog has a medical problem, then that's a different thing. But she claims that this one method, which involves harmony and kindness, can resolve all problems, all behavioral problems that dogs have. Now, training a dog from the time it's a puppy is one thing. But if you can take a dog that's had a hard time in life and turn it around and get it, improve its life and get it to behave better, and in some cases even save its life, because often dogs are put down if they're impossible to live with, then you have a friend for life. Now, traditional dog training is basically based on the idea that do what I say or I'll hurt you, or do what I say because I say so. And there are three reactions which you can get from a dog as a result of this. One of them is, okay, anything for a quiet life, I'll do what you want. The second reaction is fear, basically. So, all right, I'll do it, don't hurt me. And the third reaction is aggression. Oh yeah, come on, do you want to take me on? And unfortunately, when a dog does this, we often kill it. So dogs that behave in this way are usually put down. So there are lots of excuses that dog behaviorists use for the fact that they're unable to train a dog. Sometimes they say that it's a breed of dog that you can't train, or that it's too old. Behaviorists have come up with theories on why dogs behave badly, and they've even used gadgets like prong collars and choke chains. In fact, one behaviorist even wrote a degree thesis about the difference between prong collars and choke chains. But according to Jan Fennell, both of these things are just abuse, and she never uses either of them. We've all heard the saying, "A dog is the man's best friend." Now, imagine if you had your human best friend round for coffee. You wouldn't say to your friends, "Come in, sit in that chair." But that's what we do with dogs. And they probably think we're completely mad. But they do what we say because they have little choice. So why do we continue with this method of training? Someone somewhere along the line said, you have to dominate your dog. This is the way that it has to be done. And Jan Fennell was unhappy with this, and she was particularly unhappy about the number of dogs that were being put down. And so she said to herself, there must be a better way of training dogs. So anyway, this guy came over from the US who was a horse trainer. And he put on a show in which he trained horses. Basically, he was breaking a horse is the term that's used. And so they went to see this. She went to see it with a friend of hers, and they were both very skeptical about this horse trainer. And they believed that, in fact, the horses had already been trained, and they weren't, in fact, unbroken horses. So they went away, not very impressed. But the following year, he came back again. But this time, he asked for 2 unbroken 2-year-olds. And it just so happened that Jan Fennell had an unbroken 2-year-old called Ginger Rogers, which was a chestnut thoroughbred mare with attitude. You won't be surprised to hear that her brother was called Fred Astaire. But anyway, this horse would cow kick a car and leave a dent in it. So they often had to apologize to people because of that. So anyway, they offered this horse to the horse trainer, and he talked about what he was going to do, and he said that he would start the horse rather than break the horse. And Jan thought this was Jan liked this. She thought it was an interesting idea. It was interesting that he used the word start rather than break. And he talked about working with nature and letting the horse be a horse. And he said he would make her want to be with me. But Jan was still skeptical. Anyway, the show started, and after 23.5 minutes, the horse was walking around the pen with a saddle, a bridle, and a rider, and following the horse trainer like a little lamb. No sweat, no anxiety. This horse trainer was called Monty Roberts, and Jan watched and learned from the way that he trained horses. And she was impressed not just by what he said, but above all by the results that he got and the way that he was able to communicate with the horses. And he did the same thing with one horse after another. And Jan said that seeing the horse which they knew so well respond to him so well was an amazing experience. And after that, she was so easy to work with, and she wanted to be with people. So the idea was, rather than breaking a horse, it was starting a horse. And Jan decided to use the same ideas for training dogs. Now, going back to the idea that the dog is a man's best friend, in friendship, the most important thing of all is trust. So why would you want to hurt a friend? There's no reason that you'd want to do that. And Jan says she doesn't use the command sit ever with her dogs because there's no reason for it. It's not a useful thing. Her dogs will wait and they will stay, and she uses a command which is hup, which is used for gun dogs. And it's very important that the dog will be able to wait for its owner, because it can be important for safety, among other things. For example, if you break down on the motorway and you're on the hard shoulder, you need to be able to get your dog out of the car and get it to wait. Otherwise, it could be in a very dangerous situation. So Jan talks about building a relationship with the dog. And when you build a relationship, you listen, you learn, you understand, and then you create magic. And dog listening is this, and it's an ongoing process. So it's not something which you just do for a few weeks and then it's over. It's something which has to continue throughout the dog's life. But it's something, which you can do just for a few minutes each day. So it doesn't require a huge amount of time. Now, humans are the only animals that say, we've always done it this way. It doesn't work, but we've always done it this way, so we'll continue doing it this way. And the definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So it's much better to work with nature rather than working against nature. Only humans are able to visualize things which are not actually there. So in this way, humans are blessed. Other animals, when they see another animal, they say, am I going to eat it, or is it going to eat me? So, I mean, we don't want to be saying to our grandchildren, this is what a rhino looked like, or this is what an elephant looked like, but unfortunately, they're no longer here. We want them to be able to see these animals as they really are. So Jan helps dogs that have been labeled vicious because they growl at people, according to her, who've done them wrong. And she believes that very often these dogs have done nothing wrong and that you can change them. And so this is very important for her. And she says, in general, and this is the same with anything, not just with dog training, if you want to succeed, ask someone or watch someone who's succeeded before. And that's what she did with Monty Roberts. Monty Roberts studied the horse living free in the Nevada desert. And horses are animals that live in groups like dogs. You can call it a herd or a pack, but basically it's the same thing. So Jan did the same thing. She studied dogs in the wild. She studied African wild dogs, dingoes, coyotes, wolves, and particularly wolves in Montana. And her son is also a dog trainer. And he went to Africa and he went on safari and saw some African wild dogs. African wild dogs eat very, very quickly. They basically inhale the food. They eat it so quickly. And Tony saw them taking pieces of meat away in their mouths whole. And when he saw this, he realized that they must have puppies. So he got the people in the safari to follow the dogs. And he said, I'm sure they've got puppies. And they said, are you sure? And he said, yes, because of the way that they behaved, because he observed and watched and listened to the dogs. He realized that this was the case. So dogs, the most important thing for a dog is obviously food. And the second thing is the hunt, or what we call going for a walk. But in reality, only humans go for walks. But for dogs, it's the hunt. And then the next thing in the mind of a dog is the pack, being part of the group. And there's a kind of a rigid hierarchy in a pack, and there's always someone who's in charge. And so that a dog always looks around to see who the leader is, because in the mind of a dog there must be a leader. So it looks for the leader, and very often it looks around, particularly at people around it, and it doesn't see anything which, according to its way of thinking, shows anyone to be a leader. And so if it doesn't find a leader, if it can't see anyone who's a leader, it decides that it must be the leader itself. And this is a big problem, because if a dog lives in a human world, it's living in a world which it doesn't understand at all, and it can't cope as a leader. You just can't do it. It's like if someone took you to the intensive care department of a hospital and said, right, you're in charge, and you didn't know anything about it. It would be a nightmare. So, and this is the way that the dog feels in this situation. So Jan's attitude is to say to the dog, don't worry, leave it to me. And it really works. People say you have to be aggressive with a dog, but this doesn't work. I mean, if you show the dog your teeth, it's not going to be very impressed. You say, you call those teeth? what's that? So what you need to do is work with the dog's nature. And one example of this is called gesture eating. And this is used with dogs who won't eat, and this can be a very serious problem as well for dogs who just refuse to eat. And this, according to Jan, is related to being part of the pack, because there's a very rigid hierarchy. And the dog who's in charge, the top dog eats first, and then the other dogs eat afterwards. So this gesture eating involves eating something, even just a grape or a cracker or something, without even looking at the dog, and then putting the food for the dog down and walking away. And it really works. And very often, Jan has got dogs to eat who are on the point of starvation. So basically, it's the same really as teaching people. You don't force something into their brain, you make them want to do it, you facilitate learning. And dogs are the same as people. So this method involves understanding the nature of the dogs and using that and working with that, rather than using force and intimidation. And yes, and that's it basically.